Today we are going to discuss about heredity and evolution. Before I move on with this chapter, I would like to tell a story about how this universe originated. Now, you might have heard this term called Big Bang Theory. I will explain it in a little bit detail so that you can understand this chapter in a better way. So, there was an event which happened around 13.6 billion years ago. Now, this particular point at that particular time is considered as a point blank, which means there was nothing before that, or everything is going to start after this particular event called Big Bang Theory. Big Bang. Now, what happened in Big Bang is that there was an explosion that happened, and that led to the formation of our solar system, and the life originated after that. So this event called Big Bang was like it released tremendous amount of energy, and the temperature at that point was too high. So gradually the earth or the temperature began to come down, and after that there were molecules of carbon, hydrogen and nitrogen. So from these molecules, the amino acids and later proteins were formed, and then from the proteins the cellular elements were formed. Then we had the first kind of cell that we call as prokaryotic cell. From the prokaryotic cell, or another level of cellular organisms arose, and that was the multicellular and the eukaryotic organisms. So this is a story in brief about how life originated. So it all started with this event of Big Bang. So in this chapter we are going to discuss the process of evolution and the characteristics of traits, or the characteristics or the traits which we inherit, and how this process happen. So first let us discuss what heredity is. So heredity is basically those characters which we inherit or which we get from our parents. So in the previous class we have studied the sexual as well as asexual mode of reproduction. So in that we have seen the reproduction in various organisms like bacteria or amoeba or spirogyra, etc. So we have seen that in asexual mode of reproduction, the cells formed or the daughter cells are almost identical to the parents, but in sexual mode of reproduction we inherit the characters of both the parents, that is the father and the mother. So heredity is those characters which we inherit or which we get from our parents. Now, how these rules of inheritance or how this heredity happen in our cell, we know that the replication begins inside the nucleus, that is the DNA. So the DNA has certain points or certain genes we call. So these genes are present in the DNA. So these genes represent a particular character. For instance, for an example, you can see the striations on the body of tiger. So there is a particular gene for that, and that gene is responsible for these striations. Similarly, there are certain characteristics, like some people will have curly hair. So there is a point on your DNA, or there is a particular gene which expresses this trait called curly hair, or the complexion or the height you can see. So each and every character that you have is expressed by a certain genes. These genes are present on chromosomes in your DNA. So the basic components of inheritance is your DNA or genes. Now we will study about Mendel's experiment. So a little bit about Mendel. So he was trying to qualify an exam. He was brought up in a monastery, so he was trying to qualify an exam, and unfortunately he could not. And what happened was he started growing peas in his garden. And he started to observe the characteristics of pea, and that made him the father of one of the important branches of biology called genetics. So Mendel is considered as the father of genetics. Now we will study about the characteristics through his experiments. Basically, we will study two experiments. One is the monohybrid cross. So in this example, see, Mendel has studied a lot of characteristics. He has studied about the round and wrinkled seed, tall and short plants, then colors. So many characters he has studied, and he has observed how these characters are seen in the next generations. So first we will study about Mendel's monohybrid cross. So what happens in Mendel's monohybrid cross is he has taken two characteristics, that is a tall plant. See, this tall plant has a gene in its DNA, and this gene is expressed as capital T. So T and T. So why T and T? Because we are considering it as a pair of chromosomes, right? So in that, like we have in humans, we have 23 pairs of chromosome. That means in total we have 46 chromosomes. So each chromosome we have inherited one copy from our mother and one copy from our father. So we are taking this pea plant and we are considering one characteristic, that is tallness. Now this plant has a gene, that is two copies of one character, that is represented as T and T. That is, both T are in capital letters. Please don't get confused, both are in capital. Now we are taking another plant, that is dwarf plant, or short plant. Now in this plant, the same DNA has a different gene, that is small t, two small t. So this is a dwarf plant and another is a tall plant. Now we are allowing these plants to fertilize or mate, and we have the first generation. Now we have the first generation. What Mendel observed was, see, in the first plant, now you split the first capital T into two T's, that is one capital T and one capital T, and in the dwarf plant one small t and another small t. So one capital T from the tall will cross over with one small t of the dwarf plant. Similarly, another capital T of the tall plant will cross with the small t of the dwarf plant. So what you get in the first generation is two tall t's, two t's, that is one tall t and one short t, small t, and another plant also same like that, one T capital and one small t. So this can be a little bit confusing, so please write down in a paper and see that. I'll repeat once again. From the tall plant, the capital T will cross over with the small t of the dwarf plant, and again one more copy of this capital T will cross over with the small t of the dwarf plant. So what you observe in F1 is that you get two T, that is TT means one capital T and one small t. So these plants will be tall only, because in both the plants you have this capital T. So because the capital T is the dominant character, all the plants you will get only two plants, and these two plants will be tall only in the first generation. Now what he did was that he allowed for self-fertilization of the first generation, or we call as the F1. So TT, that is one capital T small t, will be allowed to cross over with another capital T with small t. So you will have in the next generation, you will have 4 plants, 4p plants, which will be expressed as capital T as one plant, capital T, small t, another plant, again capital T and small t, another one, and finally we'll have small plant, that is dwarf plant, which is represented as TT. So we will get 4 plants. First is the TT, capital T. Second will be capital T, small t. You will get 2 plants with a similar constitution, that is capital T and small t, and finally you will get small t. So totally you will have 4 plants at the end of F2 generation. Now if you have noticed, in the first generation, when if we take the parents, we had a tall plant and we had a dwarf plant, but in the F1 generation you don't see a short plant. What you get in F1 generation is tall plants only. Now when you come to F2 generation, you will get short plants as well. Now how this happened? See, in the F1 generation also, there were this characteristic of dwarfism, but it was hidden, it was not expressed. But in the subsequent generation, that is in the F2 generation, you have this character called dwarfism or shortness expressed. So this does not mean that the character does not exist. Like if we cross over the first generation, if we see the first generation, you will feel that you don't get any short plants, and you feel that the shortness character is not there, but it is actually there, but the thing is it is not expressed. So that is about Mendel's experiment of monohybrid cross. So in Mendel's monohybrid cross, we have seen that in the first generation only one of the 2 characteristics were expressed, but in the second generation both the characteristics were expressed. Now Mendel, through this experiment, was trying to prove that those characteristics which are hidden in a particular generation can be expressed in the subsequent generation. So why this happen is we will study in the coming sessions, because there is variation happening at the level of molecules or at the level of your DNA replication. Like when the DNA divides, it is a biochemical reaction and so many changes are happening. So these changes might cause some kind of variation, and because of these variation, new traits can be formed or existing trait can be modified. So Mendel first did it taking one characteristic, that is tallness. Now we will study about Mendel's dihybrid cross. In this, Mendel has taken to study 2 characteristics at the same time. So before that, let us understand what is dominant trait and what is recessive trait. See, in the first experiment, we have seen that the plant with 2 T's, that is 2 capital T, is represented as tall, and also in the plant with the combination capital T, small t, is also tall, but the combination with small t is a dwarf. Now take the letter T, and when the T, capital letter T, is present in a gene, that particular character become dominant, or it dominates over the small t. It doesn't allow the small t to express its trait. So those traits which expresses themselves are called dominant traits, and those are not expressed, we call them recessive trait. See, in this example, in the tall plant, the 2 capital T is a tall one and small t is the short plant. See the combination capital T, small t. Even in that, the capital T takes over the small t. So only the capital T is expressed, and because of that we call that dominant trait, and small t as a recessive trait. Now in the example also which I have given, brown eye and blue eyes. So the brown eye is represented by capital A. So and blue eyes are represented by small a and small a. So usually in the combination 2 capital A and 1 capital A and 1 small a, you will have brown eyes. But the combination small a and small a will have blue eye, which is a recessive character. So that is about dominant trait and recessive trait. Now this is again how the crossing has happened. So in the F1 generation, you have tall plant and short plant crossed over to get all the plants were tall. Tall offsprings were produced in the first generation. Now in the subsequent generation, you have short plant as well. This is a Mendel's experiment with monohybrid cross. Monohybrid means only one particular character was considered. Here only the character tallness were considered, and he studied how these traits were expressed in generations. He mainly did with F1 and F2 generation, that is first generation and second generation. We call it as filial generation. F stands for filial generation, which we don't need to study at this point. So remember that this is the experiment that done by Mendel in the monohybrid cross. Now coming on to Mendel's experiment with dihybrid cross. Now here he has taken two characteristics. One is the shape of the seed. So basically round seeds and also wrinkled seeds. So the round seeds were considered as a dominant trait. See, certain characteristics are considered as dominant. Like we have said, tallness is a dominant character. Similarly, being round seeded plant is a dominant character, and as I said, brown eyes are a dominant character. So there are certain characters which are dominant and there are certain characters which are recessive. So these things you will study in more detail in 12th standard. So for the sake of this level, we need to understand that in this experiment Mendel took two characteristics. One is the shape of the seed and the second was the color. So he took two colors, yellow and green. Here yellow was considered as a dominant character and green was considered as a recessive character. Now we will study when two characters were taken, how the offsprings were produced in two generations. One is filial generation 1 or the F1 generation and the other is F2 generation. Now consider the seeds yellow and round. See, in the yellow and round you have two capital Y. That is one capital Y which you might have inherited from your mother and the other from the father. Imagine it like that. So in pea plants also they do by pollination fertilization happen. So they have one character each from their parent plant. So in the yellow and rounded, these are two dominant character, right? Now the green and wrinkled, these two are recessive character. Now we have crossbreeded, and in the filial generation 1 we got yellow and round. Alright, so in F1 we will have 4 offsprings. So these 4 will have yellow and round seeds. So imagine we had two parents, that is yellow and round, green and wrinkled. But in the first generation we have only yellow and round combination. Now why this happened? Because the Y gene or Y allele we say, so these are dominant and the round shape is also dominant. So in the first parent or in the first plant which we considered, all the characters were dominant, and in the second plant all the characters were recessive. So when we crossbred them we got a mix of two. So these mix of two were like Y, capital Y, small y, and capital R and small r. So these combination we get as yellow and round. See, even a single Y, that is enough actually. You don't need two capital Y to express a character, because the character yellow is dominant. So even one Y will be dominant enough to express this character. Similarly, the color, the shape, the round shape is dominant. So even one R, that is one capital R, is enough to express both the character, enough to express the round shape. You don't need two R to express the round shape. So this can be a little bit complicated, but please do write in a paper and study, then you will understand how this has happened. So once again I'll tell, you have a parent plant which is yellow and round, then you have another parent plant which is green and wrinkled. So when they were allowed to crossbreed, what happened was you got the combination yellow and round. Now why yellow and round? So in this, only dominant characters were expressed. It doesn't mean that green and wrinkled do not exist at all. These characters are also present, but the thing is that because the character yellow and the shape like round were too dominant, that only those were expressed, but the recessive traits are also present in the F1 generation. The thing is, they are not expressed. So in first generation, generally we can say mostly it is the dominant character that is expressed in the first generation. Now these were allowed to self-fertilize, that is the F1 generation. You will have 4 plants, as I said. You will allow them to crossbreed, then you will get 16 combinations. Okay, 16 combinations you will get, and in the 16 combination you can see combinations like yellow and wrinkled and also green and rounded. Now in the parent you do not have a yellow wrinkled plant or a green rounded plant. So these characters are new. So these characters are transferred as a part of variation. So this is how the characteristics are transferred. Now it is not necessary that only the parental combinations are seen in the subsequent generation. New combinations are also seen. That is what this experiment is trying to tell us. So in this experiment you can see that there are plants which are yellow in color and those have wrinkled seeds, and also the plants which are green in color with round seeds. These characters are not seen in the parent plants which we took to crossbreed. So this is what you have to understand. New combinations are also possible than the existing parental combinations. So this is about Mendel's dihybrid cross. Now let us study how these traits are getting expressed. Now gene is present on the DNA, so it is present in chromosome. See, actually all these are part of DNA only. It is the part of DNA that we call as chromosome. All these things we will study much more detail in the coming classes. I mean the coming 12th or 11th standard we will study in detail about that. So just understand now that there are certain points on DNA which we can call as gene, and this gene will code for a protein. So these protein will be responsible for many processes like secretion of enzymes, all that. See, we have studied in plant that for the growth they need hormones. So these hormones are secreted by the plant cell. So these plant cell have DNA, and on DNA they have certain segments called genes, and this gene will code for a protein, and these protein will stimulate the synthesis of hormones. So it is all about how efficiently this gene works and how efficiently through this gene the protein is made, and through this protein the hormones are secreted. So it is all interconnected. So the efficiency of the plant hormone depends upon how efficiently the gene works on your DNA. See, we have two types of reproduction basically which we have studied, that is the sexual mode of reproduction and asexual mode of reproduction. So in asexual mode of reproduction we have identical characters from the parents. So that is what we saw in amoeba also. Amoeba just splits into two daughter cells which are almost identical, not exactly identical but almost identical. But in our case, that is in human beings, we know that we don't exactly look like our parents, though we have some of their traits. So the sexual mode of reproduction allows for greater degree of variation, and this has ultimately led to the formation of different types of species over the years. So you have the DNA, and all these processes are taking place on the DNA. Now coming on to sex determination. In sex determination we have, see, human beings have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So these 23 pairs of chromosome, out of which there is one particular chromosome which determines the sex. I mean one pair I would say. So we have 22 plus one chromosome XX or XY. Now in the previous classes you might have studied about cell division. Two types of cell division are there basically. One is mitosis and one is meiosis. So mitosis happens in your normal body cells. So in that the DNA just replicates or multiplies. So but in the gametes or your sperm or ovum, what happens is meiosis take place. So in meiosis what happens is it becomes half. Okay, that means suppose see, in human beings the male character is expressed as XY and female is expressed as XX. Alright, so when the gamete formation, that is when the sperm is formed in the male parent, what happens is meiosis is taking place. So it will split into one X and one Y. So similarly in the female it will split into one X and another X. So if the X from the male fuses with the X from the female, we get a combination called XX. So XX means female. Now if the Y chromosome from the male fuses with the X chromosome, then it becomes XY and it will be a male. See, there was a stigma in our society that females are responsible for determination of sex, and in the previous years or in the 50s, 60s, the woman used to be tortured if she gives birth to girl child only, and people used to blame that she can only produce girl child. But this is not the case. You have to understand that the sex is actually determined by the male, because female have 2X chromosome, but it is male who has 1X and 1Y. Depends upon whether the X fuses with the X or the Y fuses with the X, the sex is determined like that. So it is basically determined by the male parent, not by the female parent, because anyway female will produce only one type of gamete. The ovum will have only one kind of chromosome, that is it will have only X chromosome. But the sperm, it can be either an X or it can either be a Y also. So the sex determination is mainly done by the male gamete, not by the female gamete. And please do understand that the doctors who do the scanning, when the woman is pregnant, she has to undergo scanning for at different points. So at any point the doctor is not allowed to reveal the sex of the child. So they will be punished under the law. There are certain laws to prevent that as well. So it is a crime to ask for the sex of the baby, and it is equally a crime for the doctor to tell about whether the baby is a boy or a girl child. So understand, sex determination, it is mainly determined by the male parent, not by the female. See, don't think that in every organism it is the same way. No, in human beings this is how it happens, but there are organisms where the sex is determined by the females. So in our case it is only determined by the males. Acquired and inherited traits. Now, acquired traits are those traits which we acquire after our birth. So, say due to certain conditions in the environment or any other factors that can expose us to change in the combination of our genes which expresses a particular character. Now, inherited traits are those traits which we get from our parents. Like a particular trait, especially it is said that usually the male, they inherit the pinna of their ear. It looks similar to their parents. So those characters are inherited from the parents. So those characters, also certain characters like the hair or the skin complexion, all these can be inherited from our parents. Now these characters we also transfer to the next generation, whereas those characters which we acquire as a result of certain changes in the environment, certain adaptations, for instance, like if you have ever visited a very cold place, you can see that the leaves are modified into thorns. So these traits are these happen as a part of the climatic conditions. Because of the extremity in climates, they tend to adapt to it, but these changes may or may not get transferred to the coming generation, because it takes a very long time for the acquired character, if at all, to get transformed into a new character, or that is how the species, or we will see what species is, that is how the process of evolution happens. So just understand that inherited characters are those which we get from our parents. For example, the complexion of our skin, the color of our hair, the color of our eyes, all that. Now acquired characters are those characters which we get as a part of certain conditions, like the climate or anything else. Now basically it is only the inherited character that we transfer to our next generation. We do not transfer the acquired character to the next generation. For example, if you pierce your nose, so when you were born, your nose were not pierced, but you pierced your nose and you put a ring over that. Now there is a small hole on the surface of your nostrils, but these particular character, when you have an offspring, you will not transfer this particular character to its offspring, because you pierced your nose as a part of your choice. So these characters cannot be inherited or cannot be given to the next generation. So certain character definitely, like the skin complexion, hair and eyes, eye color and many other things, the color of lips also, can be transferred to the coming generations. So those characters which can be transferred to the subsequent generation are called inherited traits, and those which cannot be transferred are acquired traits. Now these are the examples for the acquired trait and also for the inherited trait. You can see eye color, skin, curly hair, dimples and height, etc. So that is about inherited trait and acquired trait. Now we are coming on to one of the most important part of this chapter, evolution. So you have to understand the basic term evolution or evolve means to change. So evolution is gradual changes that is happening. So we will understand it through an example of beetle. So in this example you can see that the beetles are red in color. So these beetles are red in color, but what happens is, red is a color which you can see from a greater distance, or red is a color we say is with a greater wavelength. So these red color, so what happens is the crows or birds feed on the beetles. Now if the color is red and these beetles are sitting on a plant, the red can be easily spotted over the green. So these beetles will be eaten by the birds or crows. So what happens is, now they will try, now the number of beetles will gradually reduce. See, for the balance of our environment or our ecology, we need all the organism to function in an optimal way. So the nature will find itself ways to mend or repair whenever there is a sudden increase or decrease of a particular organism. Now when the color of beetles are red, these red can be easily spotted by the birds. So what happens is, over the years the beetles will try to change its color, and now in the second figure you can see that some beetles are still red in color and some have changed its color to green. Now the crows cannot easily find those green colored beetles sitting on a green colored leaf or a green colored plant. So now what happens is, now they will eat only the red beetles, and over the years this will evolve. Now if you see that in the last picture, where you can see all the beetles have turned green. So now gradually this is what happens in evolution. The organism will try to change itself to adapt to the changing needs of time. That is what is evolution. We also have evolved. We also when we change our place, or when we go out of our home, we cannot be the same with some other place. So we also try to change with that. So this change is what happens in the evolution, and this gradual change over the years will lead to the formation of a altogether different species. Now you see in the figure there are red beetles and green beetles. Now there will be a time when they will not breed with each other. That is how the species formation take place. Normally when you define a species is a group of organisms which can breed among themselves and they have a particular characteristics. Now the red beetle, when they were red, they used to interbreed. Now when they totally change into green beetle, it is altogether a different species. Now they will not mate with each other. So this is how the process of evolution take place. You will have one common ancestor, and from one common ancestor different species evolve. So this is called, which we don't have to study at this point of time. This is a small, evolution is such a big topic that you cannot explain it in a 3-hour or 2-hour lecture. Even scientists are still trying to understand the complexities of evolution. It is not still complete. We have only some evidences and postulates depending upon which we study. So still there are many things to find out how these happen and all, but this is the gist of speciation. You will have a common ancestor, and because of some environmental changes, it can be due to humidity, temperature, or extreme weather conditions, or even the predator. Just like we saw in case of beetle, it is because of the predator that they try to change the color. So from the red they change it to green, and over the years it became a separate species. You have a red beetle and then you have a green beetle. Alright, so this is about evolution, how the species formation take place. Now species population happens over the years. So as I said, the definition of species is a group of living organism consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding. The formation of new and distinct species in the course of evolution is termed as speciation. Now, the important characteristics you have to remember about species is it is a group of living organism consisting of similar individuals, and they can exchange their genes or they can interbreed. So humans we call Homo sapiens is a species. So in the species they interbreed, they mate with each other, they have similar characteristics. If we look, all the human beings have basic characters. We have 2 hands, 2 legs, all that. So that is the similar individuals. Now human beings themselves mate with each other. So that is the process of breeding. So that is the typical characteristics of a species. And how the speciation happens is it happens with a time. Okay, it happens with time, and the process is called speciation, and it also happens as a matter of barriers. See, if you have ever seen the elephants in Asia and the elephants in Africa, they are different, but basically they are elephants only, but because of the changes that happened. So the African elephant in Africa, the forests are very much tropical rainforest, and also the humidity is very high. So the ears, they have got a very long ears because they have to dissipate their heat. So that has evolved as a separate species because of a geographical condition. So now that is an example of speciation. Now if you ask, the Asian elephant normally will not breed with the African elephant because Asian elephant has become a distinct species and African elephant has become a distinct species. So that is about speciation. And how it happens as a part of isolation, and over the years it happens. So speciation is also a part of evolution. Now this is another example of different species, the beak of finches. So these finches modified into different ways. So that is also example for speciation. And also the flies. So these flies have over the years evolved into different species. So these are examples to understand what speciation is. There was one common ancestor, and from one common ancestor, because of it can be many reasons, maybe because of the conditions they live or because of their feeding habits. Some prefer to eat, some prefer to be omnivores, some prefer to be insectivores. So these are all happened as a feeding habit, difference in feeding habit. Alright, so and also in case of elephant, as I told, it happened as a result of the climatic conditions or the geographical conditions. So speciation can happen because of many other factors. So this is an example of speciation. Understand what species is, and the process of formation of a new species is called speciation, and it happens over the period of time. Remember, time is a very important factor for the formation of species. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes millions of years sometimes to evolve into a totally different species. Now coming on to evolution, classification. See, the characteristic are details. Now what are characteristic or trait? It is like for example, we can say we move, right? So that is the typical characteristics of animals. So and plants, they do photosynthesis. So that is the characteristic of plant. So you identify, characteristic is that feature, or it is an identity card of an organism, you can say. So it is through a particular trait that you identify an organism. For example, birds fly. It is from their wings that we understand that they are birds. So but not necessarily. There are animals like if bat also fly, right? It also has wings, but bat is not a bird, it is a mammal. So basically there are certain characteristics which defines an organism, that is the characteristic or a trait. Now we will study about two different types of organs. One is the homologous organ and another is the analogous organ. Now if we study the embryo of humans, dog or bird or whale, understand these are all different. Like human beings belong to the class Mammalia, or we are mammals. Similarly, birds are a different class as birds itself. So and whales. So if we look at the forelimbs, they look very much similar, but their function is different. So that these organs which look similar in structure but differ in their function, they are called homologous organs. Please do understand, they look similar. Homologous, looks similar in their structure. Structurally they look similar. If you take the embryo specifically, you understand that they look similar in structure, but the function is different. Okay, what we do with our hands or what different from what birds do. So normally the structure is the same, but function is different. Now coming to analogous organ, if you take the wings of a butterfly or a bird and a bat, see these are all totally different class of animals. So bat is a mammal, bird belongs to the class birds itself, then butterflies, they belong to the phylum, like phylum of insect. So these are totally different species, but you see their structurally the wings are very much different. The wings of a butterfly is very much different from that of a bird, and those of a bird is very much different from that of a bat, but their function is similar. So those organs which do not look similar at all, but they have a common function, that is they are similar in their function, not in their structure. See the birds and butterfly and the bat, they all fly. So because the flight is a common function with the wings, but their structure do not look like similar. So these organs which are similar in function but different in structure are called analogous organs. So these are the two important class of organs which we need to study in this chapter. One is the homologous. Understand homologous, you have to remember the four limbs. All the birds, animals, so these are similar, they look alike, but their function is different. But whereas in analogous, they do not look alike at all, but their common function, they have a common function. So that is about homologous organ and analogous organ. Fossils. Now, what are fossils? When an organism dies, their body will decompose and will be lost. But every once in a while, at some part of the body, maybe in the environment, that do not decompose completely. All such preserved traces of a living organisms are called fossils. Now, these fossils are a very important tool for evolutionary biologists. So, these biologists who study about evolution, they use the fossil to understand how the species have evolved, and also how these, at what time a particular species lived. For instance, if we study, we all know that the dinosaurs got extinct, but it is from their fossils that we were able to detect at what period of time they were living. So if we understand, you must have heard the term Jurassic period is the time of dinosaurs, to say in precise. So all these we have understood from the study of fossils. So fossils are very important for the study of evolution. Now, how the fossils are formed? Basically, when initially the marine, there were certain invertebrates. So basically, when an organism, as I said in the beginning, after the Big Bang theory, the temperatures were high for a period of time. After that, Earth began to cool down, and we had the single cell organism, and from them multicellular organism, and we had invertebrates. So these marine invertebrates, when they were dead, they got accumulated on the seabed, and over the years another class of organism which when they died, they also got they also got embedded in the seabed. So if you have ever noticed, if you have ever read the newspapers, you could have understood that the petroleum rich regions of our country, if we say in India, it is the Bombay High region. So in that region, why these regions are very much rich in petroleum? It is because of these marine segments or these marine fossils. So that is how they have evolved to form the rocks also. So these there are different categories of rocks also. We don't need to study all that, but just understand these over the years they become very hard structures called rocks, and some particular rocks are very much rich in fossils, and over the years certain climatic conditions or weather events, they cause erosion and these particles might come out. So that is how the fossils are formed and how they help us in the study of evolution. Now evolution, as I said, it is not an overnight process. It takes millions of years for an organism to evolve into a totally different one or to make changes in itself. So in this you can see a dinosaur. So this particular dinosaur, it had feathers. So now you know that dinosaurs or dinosaurs, whatever you say, they do not fly. Now why they have feathers if they do not fly? So imagine when after this event of Big Bang, we have come across nearly 5 to 6 ice ages. So at that point of time the temperatures were very much low and it was so cold. So as a adaptation to survive in the extreme cold conditions, the dinosaurs had feathers. Remember that in birds, feathers not only help them to fly, but also it regulates or it provides insulation from the weather conditions. So in dinosaurs also you can see feathers. So now why we have also recovered the imprints of feathers from dinosaurs. Now why this? What does this show? This show that birds have evolved from reptiles. You know, dinosaurs belong to that class of reptilia. So it is a close link between a bird and a reptile. So that is how you have to understand and correlate the process of evolution. So in evolution, various changes happens over the years, and because of these changes the organism gets modified. Now you must have heard about the famous scientist or naturalist, I would say, that is Charles Darwin. So he set out for a venture and he is credited with a theory of evolution. So according to Darwin, which we don't need to study, but still I would say to make you understand how this process happened. So Darwin says that an organism has an ability to reproduce, and it can reproduce to a greater extent, but all the organisms, all the offsprings produced by a particular organism will not survive. So you must have heard about the famous phrase associated with Darwin's theory, that is the survival of the fittest. So how does this survival of fittest happen? It happens through the process of natural selection. So these are the two key words of Darwin's theory. One is the natural selection and the other is the survival of the fittest. So that though an organism produce many offspring, it is those organisms or those offsprings which are capable to survive in the condition which they are born, only they will survive. So there should be, for an organism to survive, there should be food, and there should be proper weather conditions. So if either the body will evolve or body will adapt, or that species will get eliminated. So in the process, if we take the history of Earth from the time of Big Bang theory, that is 13.6 billion years, we have seen a number of species have become extinct. So you must have heard about the bird dodo that got extinct, and there are many species in the recent years also who are on the verge of extinction. So there can be many reasons for extinction. There can be natural causes like disasters, earthquake, flooding, all those, and also there can be causes associated with the humans. We humans also contribute to the extinction of species. So that is how the evolution happens. Now for an example that is given in the NCERT, that is the selection of cabbage. We will study about that. So I told about natural selection. That is what has been explained by Darwin in his theory of evolution. Only the fittest will survive, and who will determine who is the fittest? That is the nature through the theory of natural selection. So these two are the important terms which we have to remember at this point. Now coming on to the evolution of wild cabbage. So we humans have been cultivating the cabbage for over 2000 years. But we could see a variety of cabbages. You might have also observed. So the normal cabbage which we have, the spaces between the leaves are very short. So that is the normal cabbage which we eat. And also there are other variations like when the flower development is arrested, you can have the broccoli type of cabbage, or when the swollen parts can be specially grown, specially given importance and grown. And also there are type of cabbage where the leaves are given so much importance, and in some cases the sterile flower is given importance, as in case of cauliflower, to cite as an example. So all these are examples of artificial selection. So this is how we humans, what we do is, we according to our choices see what characteristic we need. So some choose to grow as a flower, some choose to grow as a swollen part, or some as large leaves. So these are all basically choices. So these choices, how does it happen? We incorporate certain changes in the DNA of this particular cabbage, and then we modify it. So that is how the changes by or evolution by the artificial selection has happened. Whereas in many organisms, nature itself select the fittest one according to Darwin's theory of evolution. So that is Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection, and also how the same thing we have incorporated through the advancements that happened in the science and technology. So that is about the evolution by stages. Now, so evolution is not always a progressive idea. So what do you mean by progressive idea? So suppose we see that evolution always give a better progeny. Not necessarily, but mostly we have better or different organism. So remember, progressiveness is not associated with evolution, but rather the right term to use here will be diversity or variation through environmental conditions. So for instance, if we can say there has been various postulates about human evolution. So it is said that the Neanderthal man we have evolved from them. So we have evolved as a separate species of Homo sapiens. But actually, if we study more about the Neanderthal man, they have more dominant traits than the present Homo sapiens. So you cannot always say that we are the best species compared to our ancestors. Nothing like that. It is all that we are a diverse species from our ancestors, not necessarily that we are much better or best than our ancestors. So evolution is basically gives diversity, and when evolution happens through the mode of sexual reproduction, it becomes all the more diverse. See, in asexual mode of reproduction also there can be diversity, but it is when compared to sexual reproduction gives more scope for diversity. So diversity, evolution evolution always leads to diversity, but not necessarily you have the best organism in the subsequent generation. So just understand that evolution should not be equated with progress. It should rather be equated with diversity by the process of environmental or natural selection, as proposed by Darwin in his theory of natural selection. Now coming on to the evolution of human, you don't need to remember the names. We don't have to study about this at this point, but just see how we have evolved. So it is said that the evolution of human beings as we see today have started from African region. So they have come from the Africa, they have come to the Central Asian regions and probably moved to the Indonesia and later to the Australia, and they have crossed various straits and reached even the America. Earlier it was believed that they were separate races, that is those in Africa were separate from those in Asia, but now according to the modern evolutionary biologists, there is nothing like different races. It is only a single species of Homo sapiens sapiens. So it is said that it all started in Africa and then later moved on to Central Asia, and from there to Indonesia, and then to the probably to America. So it is not necessary. So why they have moved? So we are all still trying to understand about it, but basically, like all of us, they also wanted to live their life in the best possible way. So at present, that is what we can conclude, just to live their life in the best possible way, taking the advantage of the climatic conditions or whatever it is. They wanted to have a better life, and that could be the most probable reason why they wandered all around, spreading across the continents. So that is the story of human evolution. So we don't need to study about how it happened in this class. We have to study much more detail in the 12th standard. So at present, just understand humans moved from one continent to another to live their life in the best possible way. So that's about human evolution.